Very nice guy. Hey Sam sent me two beautiful amps, the 78-2204 and a 65 Deluxe Reverb. I'll be getting to that one next, but I was impatient to see what was waiting for us here. So this is just kind of be an inspection of things I see, and I've already spoken to him about a few things, and I'll fill the rest of you in. The first thing I like to do is I like to check the fuses are the correct value, and they are 3 amp and 500 milliamps. But I noticed when checking that there was some corrosion, just some white yuckiness on the fuse holders. So that kind of stuff matters. I like to hit that with a little bit of deoxit. Doesn't take a lot. Inside on both terminals. And deep down in the recesses. Now it's going to be a non-issue. If there's a little bit of the deoxit in there for a while, it'll evaporate out for our purposes. But really nice clean contacts matter. You can see a little bit of residue, a worn area here. If you don't have good metal-to-metal contact in a fuse holder, you can have issues with signal cutting out, even if everything looks okay. So let me do the same thing on the 500, and I'll put these caps back on, and then we'll resume. The HT fuse was extra grungy. Now this amp came in without tubes. My preference usually, if the tubes are good, ship the amp, less to break. So I've got some old RCAs and I think a Tungsram in here, and some rubies that I had laying around. I think they're good. We'll find out. This amp came in. It has been recapped previously. It has JJs, and I spoke to Sam about that. And while I've not chosen to use them myself because I've heard of issues, I know an awful lot of people have success with them. They may be just fine. That's one of the things we'll find out. Over here, it's got the original main selector switch and output selector switch. And while these are still in pretty good shape, they've got good tension for one of these things, they do wear out. And he changes the output impedance a lot for different cabs. And there's no need to have a voltage selector. So we're going to leave this one here cosmetically, or he can put it to the side, whatever. But I'm going to hardwire this for 120 volts use. It can always be put back. And per his preference, this is not me upselling, we're going to take out this original switch and put in one of the TAD adapter plates like I did on that 75 a couple weeks ago, and put in a new switch that's more reliable. And then he will still have this. If he ever sells this amp and a collector wants it, it can be put back very easily. It's not a permanent change. Looking inside the amp, the only other electrolytics are here in the bias supply, and these have been changed out. I don't know whether one tech did this at the same time with two different type of caps, or whether one tech changed out one cap and another tech changed out the other cap. I don't know, but I'm going to replace these with two matched Vichets so we know that they are good and that when they were changed. And there's some corrosion on the diodes here in the bridge and the, not bridge, but the rectification and in the bias supply. And as these are critical to the behavior of the amp, but they are inexpensive parts and there's nothing inherently important about 1978 diodes, so I'm going to put some new high quality 1N4007s there. Other than that, everything else in the amp is completely original and should be absolutely fine. I have no plans on changing anything unless we observe a failure or a noise issue. But in general, this should be absolutely fine. It's possible one of the ceramic caps is bad or a box cap is bad, but it's not likely. You can see here, Marshall in this period had two dropping resistors in this spot, and they would have two 10Ks or just one 10K rather than one 20K. So depending how the board is populated, it changes the preamp power supply. This amp just has the one 10K, which is going to give higher headroom in the preamp. The 75 from a couple weeks ago had two 10Ks, so it had lower preamp voltage. That amp also had a very astoundingly low 330 volts on the plates of the output tubes. We'll see where this one sits in 78. The input jacks and pots are all original, and hopefully they'll be fine. May need a little bit of a clean. I spoke to the owner, and we're going to turn this on in just a minute and see what the stock noise floor is, but he is very open to me making the same ground scheme changes that I did on that 75. So if there is a background noise in this amp, which I expect there to be, it will drop that out. But again, it is a non-permanent, non-invasive solution. It can be put back to this if necessary because someone just wants it that way. But usually, as in every time I've ever had it happen, had an amp come in on my bench, it is better to make these changes. The 75 had the 680 nanofarad. This one has the 100 nanofarad. This is the more typical value found in most Marshalls, but that 680 is also used in this period. But this one has never been changed from the factory. It still has the 4.7K and the 25K pot and the 100 nanofarad there. You can see here, a previous tech already moved these grid wires away from the black wires going to pin 9. I showed that on the 75. That is such a huge difference. And for all I know, someone at the factory did this. This might not have been moved since 1978. Either way, whoever did it was a genius because they did it just like I do. Whoever installed the JJ cap seems to have done a really good job. I am going to make some changes to the grounds just as I showed in the 75 video. But unless these caps are failing for some reason, they can stay. And it'll be the owner's choice whether he wants to go to some new F&Ts just to be sure. But if these are fine, these are fine. Interestingly, this 78 came from the factory without screen grid resistors and without grid stoppers. Now, screen grid resistors can offer a lot of protection to the rest of the amp if you have a failed tube, or they can keep a failure in one tube from affecting the other tube. And in general, they do affect the feel, the playing feel in a good way. Most people like a screen grid resistor for the feel it provides. As you increase that resistance, you get more compression, and also the tubes will be happier. So I spoke to the owner, and we are going to install screen grid resistors and also some grid stoppers, which this amp did not have. Some Marshalls in this period did not have grid stoppers, but it really keeps the output stable and rejects noise, environmental noise. And as we have so much hash in the air now from cell phones and Wi-Fi and stuff, it's almost a no-brainer to add them. So this amp is going to have screen grid resistors and grid stoppers added. All right, let's power this thing on and see what the noise level's like. I may have to change these tubes out. These are just some that I grabbed that were around. We'll see. Let's power it on. I've got the current limiter so I can make sure that everything's safe and that nothing is going crazy. I'm going to measure the bias right now. It's a negative 27. I want to set that more negative. I want, if anything, since I just randomly put a pair of EL34s in here, for this to be cold rather than too hot. It just takes hot plating out of the red plating out of the equation. All right, so far everything seems okay. I've got nothing plugged in. I've got the gain at 0, master at 10, all the other pots, so treble, mid, bass, and presence at noon. All right, I hear the sound of a Marshall with stock grounds. That's to be expected. Got a little bit of microphonics on V1. And microphonic EL34s. For the purpose of a test, that's okay. This tells me that this amp is noisy, and with the ground scheme fixed, that noise that we're hearing now should go away. There's not a problem with the filtering, so that's good. Let's turn that master down and see what the amp is sounding like if I plug a guitar in. And I've got the SG. So let's start with the low gain and see what kind of clean sounds we can get out of this thing. That's really sounding pretty nice. Let's try the high gain stuff. Turn the master down some more. Well, that is a really promising start. All the pots seem okay. The only thing that really worries me a little bit is when I move the mids pot, the wiper of the pot physically moves a lot. So it's loose. That's kind of crimped onto the wafer. I can see if I can crimp that better. The others aren't doing it at all. Let's see if I can do that on camera. Less, but it's still there. I may need to pull that pot to do a little bit more. I just don't want that wiper to separate from normal use. If it lifts off the track, you can get intermittent signals. And that pot alone of the rest of the pots had a little bit of to it. But I'll revisit that. It's a very bright amp, and that's caused, of course, by both this bright cap here and this 1 nanofarad cap. This is the main reason this amp gets really bright, that 1 nanofarad. And some guys like to have that cap removed. Some guys like to have the 470 picofarad removed, or both. I'll talk to the owner about that. But if he's always loved the sound of the amp, just wants it to be more reliable and quieter, I'll be glad to leave that alone. It's his amp, not mine. I'm not here to impose my tastes on the world. But I do think that anything we can do to make sure that this really beautiful 78 stays really beautiful and healthy and as original as possible is a good thing to do, and the owner agrees, which is nice for both of us. Thanks for watching.